Hey guys, my name's Nick. I'm a Microsoft Certified Expert Administrator. I create a lot of content for MSPs, and today I'm going to be walking you through how to set up data loss prevention on mobile devices like iOS and Android. So not many people know the power of Intune and the mobile application management that comes with it, but what this does on a high level is allows you to restrict access to certain applications that have corporate data, and it restricts cut, copy, paste, or saving it to untrusted locations and things like that. So as far as an agenda today, we're going to be going through the licensing requirements for data loss prevention. We're going to be doing a comparison of AM versus MDM. We're going to be setting up an app protection policy for iOS and Android. And then I'm going to be showing you the end user experience for both iOS and Android as well too. So getting into it here, licensing requirements, you typically want the EMS plus E3 suite there. This is $875 and it does come with Intune, and it also comes with Azure ADP1, which has conditional access. Intune standalone will work for the mobile application management piece of it here, but as you'll see, the conditional access piece actually makes this a lot more powerful experience as far as being able to protect that corporate data. Intune standalone is $6 a user a month, and then we get into some of the bundles here. So M365 Business and M365 E3, E5 for our enterprise level customers. M365B is one of the most valued packages in my opinion, just because it comes with all these features, plus some additional security and things like that. But these are the plans that you'll want to look for when you're thinking about licensing users with this solution. So general landscape here, we're kind of shifting from this perimeter-based network where we had a trusted location into the zero trust model, because we have employees that are working off of untrusted devices in untrusted locations, and they have the mentality that they want to get work done anywhere and they don't want their productivity to be slowed. We also are shifting into many SaaS applications, third-party SaaS applications being onboarded to try to enhance productivity, but that's also causing a lot of shadow IT. So with this current landscape, we're shifting to the zero trust model where we have user and device claims that are gaining access to certain resources depending on certain conditions that are met. And that's kind of what we'll be getting into today as well. So this is what we want when we think about applications and we think about users accessing applications on their personal cell phones and things like that. We want to remain compliant for those of you who have customers that have certain requirements with NIST or HIPAA or FINRA, or even CCPA that was recently introduced, where we don't want to have PII exposed or certain corporate data that's processed or stored in an unsecure manner. We want to be able to remotely wipe corporate data whenever an employee leaves the company or they have their device lost or stolen. We want to restrict them from cut, copy, paste into unmanaged applications so that, again, if they leave or that device is lost or stolen, our data isn't exposed. We want to restrict their save as permissions for documentation into, again, trusted locations, not the personal Google Drive or things like that. And then overall, obviously, we just want to increase our security. So we don't want somebody accessing these resources in an untrusted network on their personal laptop that gets infected with malware, and then bringing that back into our perimeter network and having an attacker move laterally throughout the organization. So these things can be accomplished with the solution from Microsoft Intune, which is mobile application management. So this is your traditional device itself, whether that be a tablet or a personal device such as a laptop, iOS or Android, where you have this mix of corporate and personal data without any restrictions. So they can really go in and they can save this anywhere they want. They can still have that whenever they leave the personal workplace. And there's a mix of corporate and personal data on these apps. So it's showing you here Word document with their own personal Word docs and then corporate data mixed as well too. So you can't exactly wipe the data without wiping all of their personal files as well. So when we shift to mobile application management, we're looking at securing corporate data and restricting it outside of all of the untrusted applications like their social media, like their personal storage, and everything else that's on that device. We're also separating that on an app level. So Word is what they're showing here as the example. These are straight from Microsoft, but you can think of other third-party SaaS applications that are commonly used, like Dropbox, for instance, somebody that has a personal and work account. You want to be able to separate that so you can wipe that corporate data when you need to. So MAM versus MDM, the cool thing about Intune MAM is the fact that you don't have to actually enroll these devices into your mobile device management solution in order to get this protection. It's at the app level. And you'll see this in the demo here, but when somebody's trying to access corporate data on one of these applications that you've defined, you can actually get them to be prompted to actually protect that data, and it's registered within Intune as well too, so you can manipulate it however you like as far as remotely wiping it or restricting their access based off of certain locations that they're in or certain trusted devices that are enrolled into Intune potentially as well. So this moves us into this, again, zero trust model, where if you have critical business applications that you don't want access on untrusted devices, like people's personal cell phones, you can actually block them from doing so as well. So this is what this looks like just from the standpoint of MDM. It's protecting the entire device, and you can push out other things to that device, like compliance policies that look for things such as device being jailbroken or meeting certain password requirements for the iOS solution or Mac or Android solution, I should say, itself. So there's a clear separation here. In most cases, your end users are not going to want to enroll their personal devices into your MDM solution. So now we can get into the demo. I'm going to be showing you guys the app protection policies that you'll want to set up, and then again we'll go through the end user experience as well. So I'm going to come in here to my test tenant. This is just one with M365 Business set up, and I'm going to walk you through setting up the MAM policies here. So what we'll want to do is actually click on the Endpoint Manager portal here. It used to be called Device Administrative Center, and they've rebranded that since in Ignite of last year. So the big thing here that we want to do is go into the App section. And under here you'll see policy, and then you'll see app protection policies here. I've already created a couple so I could show you the end user experience, but we're going to go ahead and create a new one. Before I move on, this demo video is specifically related to iOS and Android. I have another video up on my YouTube channel here that goes through the Windows 10, and that one's pretty cool too, so I definitely check that out. So we'll start actually with Android, and this is a basic wizard that you'll go through to set this up. And I would highly advise just detailing out exactly what you're doing in the description here, so anybody on your team who comes in can see that. So I'm just going to skip over it for now. So I'm going to go through each of these sections just so you know what they all mean. So this is saying, hey, target to all apps on all device types, and that is specifically looking at unmanaged and managed device types. So in most cases, you're going to want to select no here, because again, you want this to specifically be targeting certain personal devices like personal cell phones, things like that. If you did not say no and check this box and say yes, instead of it trying to just protect the app, it's going to try to get that end user to enroll their device in the MDM solution, which is generally not what you want. It would redirect them to the company portal and download that from the App Store or the Google Play Store, but in most cases, again, this person is not going to be comfortable enrolling their personal device. Next, we have public apps you can select from. In many cases, you're really just going to stick with the Office suite here, but you can add custom applications or applications that you've added in the Azure AD portal under single sign-on, for instance. And again, this is where we're getting into restricting access on a very granular level. So I typically like to come in here and put in the applications they already have access to today, which is the entire Office suite with M365B. And they may not be accessing some of these, but it really doesn't hurt to add all of them there. And it's basically saying that these are our trusted applications, quote unquote, trusted. So if they're trying to save data outside of these apps, or if they're trying to cut, copy, paste, that's where we get into some of these policies that we're about to set up, which restricts that access. Custom apps, again, you can select yours, and you can put in package ID. It's kind of outside the scope of what I wanted to show you here, but you do have that available. So data protection gets pretty granular here, but I think it's really awesome, all the things that you can do. So you can back it up to backup services. I would block this. Just if it's a personal device, this is specifically a policy. If these were corporate-owned devices, this may not be something that is a consideration, but this is specifically driven towards that BYOD device. Send org data to other apps. This is an important one. So you want to say policy managed apps, and that encompasses the ones that we just mentioned here. And you can exempt some if you really didn't care if they transferred the data. But I selected the Office Suite. The DLP that I want to set up here is basically saying, hey, don't do any of these things. Save copies of the org data. I want to set this to block. And you can, if you set it to block, you can allow them to save it to OneDrive for Business, SharePoint, or local storage, but that's it. So maybe, if anything, OneDrive for Business would be what you would select here. But I typically say, as a general policy, just don't do it at any device. Receive data from other apps. I would say only policy managed apps. You don't want that being ingested there. Could be malicious content coming in. And the same thing here, we want to restrict cut, copy, paste to the policy managed apps. And we could say cut and copy character limit for an app. And you could define that if you really wanted to. I'm cool with it just being 0 for the default. This setting here is cool with the Android policy because you can prevent them from taking screenshots of the corporate data or video recording. So I would say block for this one. With iOS, you can't actually do that. You have to have it enrolled in MDM to be able to do that. And you could define approved keyboards. This is unique. I'm not going to do that for most cases. I don't think it's going to come up, but you may have a unique customer case that I'm not considering. Requiring encryption of org data. This is, again, going to meet some security and compliance requirements. Encrypt org data on enrolled devices. You're going to say the same. Functionality, sync app with native contacts. This one's cool because if, let's say, you're redirecting somebody from the native mail app into Outlook, for instance, which we'll show, you can still allow them to sync their contacts over, which has been a big pain point I've heard from certain MSPs where their customers are complaining because if you set them up on Outlook, they don't have access to those contacts. But with this, they would. So I typically say allow, but again, personal preference to you. And then I block printing of org data. In this one, web content, you can define what this looks like here. So where this comes into play is where if you have a user and you've only set up Outlook as the preferred application to the device or the trusted application, and they try to click on a Word doc, for instance, that's shared with them, or a Excel sheet or something like that, it's going to try to take that URL and open it up in a web browser if it's on the mobile device still. So you could say they could just use an unmanaged browser or any app to open up that content. And that's something where you really want to take a look at this one. You could have them do Intune managed browser, which is probably the most secure. If they don't have this installed, it'll redirect them to the iTunes store or the Google Play store to install it. But again, you're going to have to do personal preference. What I would recommend is that you just have them install or keep all the apps in the section here that you want to push out, like Word or Excel, where they would be opening up these documents, and then they won't be able to go ahead and do that. They'll have that installed, and then instead of the link, it'll just open up in that app itself. Work data notifications, I say allow, not too big of a security risk with that or anything like that. So this is the other cool part. This is like a secondary factor of security that we're using to have these users access the application itself. So it's requiring a PIN. So they set this up after they enroll the app into your MAM solution here, and you can define the settings of this PIN that they're defining here. It could be more complex, and this is great for compliance regulations, right? So you want to make it pretty complex, but it also is something where you want the user to remember it. But that's where this comes into play. You can use biometrics if it's over a certain setting type or build, and I would allow for this always. And then you get into your timeout. So again, security concerns, if it's timed out for 30 minutes, then they have to put their PIN back in, and then you can define a number of days before the PIN as well too. And for these particular ones here, I would be careful with this one. So this is cool for certain applications where people get confused between work and school and then their personal Microsoft credentials, and it causes some confusion, so you can require that. But downside here, from a productivity standpoint, it's going to require them to log in every single time they open up that app, and that to me is a bad end user experience if it's on their personal device. So I typically do not required, but again, It's up to you. You can be restrictive with that if you want. And then recheck access requirements. You can say minutes of activity again here, and require them to sign back in. So this is saying if they are not meeting this, then you would have them sign in again after 30 minutes and reprompt for the PIN. So every 30 minutes they would have to do that of inactivity, which again can be disruptive. Last settings here, app conditions. You can typically leave the defaults here, but again, if you want to customize them, you can. You have the max PIN attempt, so if they fail the PIN, it's gonna have them reset, and they're gonna reach out to you to reset the PIN. You have an offline grace period of 720 minutes to block access, and you have offline grace period of 90 days before it's gonna wipe the data. So again, this is at the app level on that device. It's not gonna wipe the data completely across the organization. And then you could define for certain applications the minimum app version. This is optional, but that's kind of cool as well. Just to make sure it's got all the recent security patches and things of that nature. And then other cool things here, you could define min OS versions for them to be able to enroll that. So maybe they have really old devices there that you want a certain level of an OS to be accessing corporate data. So this is another great way to do that. And some of these features aren't going to be available to you, like device threat level, company portal, unless you have the enterprise level SKUs. Default though, jailbroken rooted devices is great. So if they have that, they'll just get a pop-up message that says, hey, this device is jailbroken. You can't access corporate data on this device. Lastly here, we can scope this to certain users or groups. And I typically just say all users. Click next. And obviously you could get more restrictive, less restrictive with certain users depending on what they're doing. But again, these are certain requirements that you can put into place, and this is a great thing to set up as well. So I'm going to actually exit out of this because I already created it and get right into the iOS. This one will be a little bit quicker just because a lot of the settings are similar, but a couple of unique differences that I'll go through. So again, if we're going to target it to personal devices, you want to say unmanaged. Same thing here where we would want to define the certain applications that we're going to protect. All right, I think that's good. We're going to click next. Again, you can define being able to allow allow backups or not, save copies of avoid data, receive data from other apps, restrict cut, copy, paste. This is one where if you just have this app policy set up, it will still allow them to navigate into the native mail client and access their mail, and also allow them to do cut, copy, paste, which is why I recommend creating a conditional access policy, which I'll be showing here next. That's why I like them in conjunction, because you still don't get the full feature set, in my opinion, unless you're doing both. We can block third-party layouts or allow them. Again, personal preference on that one. Encryption of org data, highly recommend. Again, contacts here, blocking the printing, defining a browser if you want, allowing for org notifications. Same things here as far as the settings go. Biometrics again, Face ID for this one. Nothing really different there though. Same thing here as far as the requirements, so I'll skip over that, and then again you can scope it out. So these are the settings that you can define. I've defined them here, and I've already assigned them certain users, and you can see whenever you actually do assign them, the apps that users actually check in. So that's when they're going into those and it's telling them, hey, we are protecting this device. The corporate organization is protecting the data here. And you'll see that when we go through the end user demo. And this is also, going through and saving all the requirements as a summary, and you can go modify this at any time. So before we get into the demo, I mentioned we like conditional access as well too. So to get to there, you could be just straight in here actually. I'll leave it and go to devices and then go to conditional access. So the clear differentiation here, we can set up some policies that require the user to be on a certain network, or we require them to be enrolled in our Intune policy for MDM for access to certain applications. And then also, though, the bigger piece here is that you can restrict them from accessing untrusted applications like that native mail app that I mentioned as well. So you can completely block their access from trying to set up their account on the native mobile app, and in some cases it'll redirect to the Google Play Store. In others, it'll just tell them that this isn't a trusted app from your IT administrator. So I've set this up here with conditional access. If you're not familiar, you have your conditions up top here that are met, and then based off these conditions, this is what controls we want to put in place. So if this is going on, then I want to require this, or this is what happens. It's binary, grant or block access, and then you can granularly define the certain security requirements, like maybe heightened security with MFA, maybe heightened security with that device being enrolled into MDM. But I'm going to go through each one of these here. You want to scope this out generally to all users, but you can scope it to certain individuals within the organization. You can define certain cloud applications if you really want to apply this to only certain apps or get more restrictive with certain apps. You can do that as well. Under the conditions here, I included the device platforms of just iOS and Android because I want these policies to just apply to the mobile apps. And under location, you have the ability to say that if you're on my trusted network, and I don't want to have to block you or restrict you. But in this case, for this policy from personal devices, I'm not going to select anything there. And then this, you can configure client apps, and you can say mobile apps and desktop clients, and this is all configured here. Device state I'm not going to get into. Lastly here, I don't know why that's popping up over there. We'll go with it though. So we're going to say grant access, and this is where it's going to have you require an app protection policy, and this is just for Outlook. And this is saying, hey, we have that app protection policy set up. And then this one here is where you can say, I want a approved client app. So that's saying they try to go to their native mobile or native mail app and they try to set up their account there, then they're going to get blocked and told, hey, you need to go set this up on a trusted app and be redirected to Outlook. So that's everything there. This is all well and good, but I love visuals. I'm a visual learner, so I wanted to show you guys what that end user experience looks like. So we'll get into that now. So the first thing here is just the end user experience with that conditional access policy in place, where it's on an Android, which is saying, hey, I want you to access from a trusted app. So we're here on the Android, and we're going to go ahead and go to the native mobile app, and we're going to go and sign in with an end user here who's licensed with Intune. It's going to go through this process, and it's going to pull this up as far as saying the account's been set up. But when they access here, they're going to get this one email message, and if they open that, it's going to tell them that your IT department requires you to use the Outlook app, and it'll give them a link there to redirect to the Google Play Store. So they'll go to the Google Play Store, and if they don't already have it installed, you can install it. But if they do, they can just simply open up Outlook. And when you pull up Outlook here, you're going to go ahead and sign in with your work or school creds, and they'll be directed to type in their password. And then they'll have it register this particular app to the MAM policies here. It'll tell them that your IT department is now helping you protect work or school. It'll have them restart the app. And when they open this back up here, it's telling them that it's protecting the data. And here's where they set up their PIN. So again, we set that 4-digit PIN that they need to put in for additional security. And the minutes of activity you could have defined as well too beyond that 30 minutes before they have to redo this. So there's a contact message there where you can sync those contacts over. If this user has MFA, they'll be prompted for that as well too, and they'll be back into their mail. Secondly, here we have the user experience without conditional access, so it's restricting DLP like cut, copy, paste, and save as permissions. So this is where they're again, this is the first time enrollment, they're looking to go sign in. You don't have that conditional access policy in place, but it's going to go ahead and tell them some security settings here. So it looks like they need to control the security features, and you'll say okay. So this is allowing them access, but it still gives you the ability to wipe that corporate data off of this app as well too. And so it's telling you that this is the IT administrator's rights. They can do all this with this particular email profile. And then you can click on done, but they'll still have access in that native application or native mail app to access corporate data, but it will still be restricted. And here's where you see there's a doc sent, credit card information. It's telling them, hey, to open up this with Word. They'll open up Word and it'll have them install Word if it's not. Again, they're going to be prompted with that PIN they set up, and it'll ask for their contacts in any app. And then it'll have them sign in and be prompted for MFA if they have that turned on as well. So this will load up and they'll have this Word doc here now. And you'll notice I'm going to go ahead and try to copy the text here. And I'll just select all and I will go ahead and copy. Now I'll go into a memo that's in Google or in the Android app itself. So I'll pop into that memo icon under tools. I'll create a new memo and I'll try to paste that data in there. And here you see you get the message that your organization data cannot be pasted here. So that's what they get, and it's good. It's good for end users to kind of get in the mindset that, hey, I can't do this on these devices. This lastly is just showing save as on the Android. So it's saying, hey, let me go ahead and try to save this to my device or a third party, saying it's disabled and you can't do it. So that's DOP on Android. So it's pretty powerful after you get that set up. Next here, I want to go ahead and show you the user experience with the conditional access policy on an Apple, and this is specifically restricting it to app protected or trusted applications, I should say. So I'm going in as the iPhone user and I'm adding an account, selecting Exchange. I'm typing in my credentials here for Microsoft. I'm going to go ahead and be redirected to type in my password. I'll go ahead and type in my password. And then I will be redirected here, and it just says simply, you can't get in from here. It looks like you're trying to open this resource with an app that hasn't been approved. So that was that one. And then lastly here, the UX with Outlook. So this is if they are being redirected. You tell them, hey, go use the Outlook app. This is what the end user experience is like. So they come and they go in and they try to type in their credentials here. And they're redirected towards putting in a password. And they're telling you if you don't have MFA, it's telling you to try to go get the Microsoft Authenticator app. So that's up to you. If you want to have them do that, you can turn that off if you want. But then it's saying, hey, we're checking the app status. Again, same message as the Android. We're telling you to restart the app. And then here, if I go back into the application of Outlook, it's again checking the app status. It'll have them, this is the only annoying part about it, it'll have them sign in one more time. And then once they do though, you can have notifications, and if they refresh on the app itself here, they will have access to their email. Additionally, not featured, they also have the same type of experience with cut, copy, paste, where it'll give them that message about your organization not allowing you to do this, and the same with being able to save as to untrusted locations as well. So that's everything I want to show you guys. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. Definitely like or subscribe if you want to keep seeing more content around Intune and M365. Thanks and have a great day.